Okay, we're here outside Salt Lake City with Mark Gaffney, and we're talking about commitment. Do you have any thoughts on this topic of commitment, Mark?
Yeah, it's a great question, Luke. You know, commitment's something that we're all a little bit confused about in this, in this century. You know, it used to be, right? You grew up in, wander down here. You grew up in Pinsk in Europe, and you were in the same town, with the same set of friends, with your family, with the same wife, and you lived there, from age 20 to age 70, and your life was very, very, very stable. You didn't move, you were in the same place, right? And all your circles were the same. Today it's a different world. I mean, Luke, you were born in Australia, right? Yeah. You had a circle of friends, you had a particular life, and I'd say on many different levels you changed all the circles of your life, which is a function of the 20th of the century. Peter Berger writes, this is the world of options, that we actually get to choose in a way that we never got to choose before in the world. And we get to change, and we get to transform. And of course the nature of change is change by definition requires destabilizing, right? As long as, if our challenge in the world is growth and change, we have to actually be willing to give up a measure of stability in order to change, right? As long as I'm kind of not changing, I'm stable. And so how do we balance those two? Especially when we value commitments. Commitments are a big deal. How do we both keep our commitments and at the same time know which commitments need to shift and change and how things need to move? And so I want to just make a distinction between what we'll call commitments and meta-commitments. And this is a distinction I've talked about with one of the great spiritual teachers in America, Sally Kempton, who's actually written an article about this in a yoga journal. The difference between commitments and meta-commitments. So a meta-commitment is, it's kind of like the mission statement of my life. The mission statement of my life is to be good. It's to share gifts of teaching. It's to take care of people in the best way I can. It's to own my mistakes when I make them. It's to read Hebrew texts and unpack their beauty and share them in a way that's transformative for people. It's to teach world spirit. It's to learn world spirit. It's to, engage in whatever they are. Those are my meta commitments. And my commitments are different. My commitments are, I'm in this synagogue. I'm at this place with this organization. I may be in this marriage, right? Those are commitments. And those commitments are important, and sometimes they shift. And they're shifting in this century, right? We know people, mutual acquaintances that we both have high regard for, who are married several times. So that's a shift in commitments, right? But the meta commitment remains the same. Meaning, I would say that those people in their marriages, right? And I think, particularly what I'm thinking about right now, right? Actually, in each one tries to be as good as he can, as committed as he can, and to grow as much as he can, and to do all the things, that you need to do. And so that's the distinction, right? A person may start, for example, as a Jewish teacher, let's say in a Jewish, summer camp, and then one might become kind of a social activist, and then a person may go and, start, doing a radio show, which is basically not for Jews, it's a broad, general thing, really not in the Jewish world anymore, but actually their meta commitment hasn't shifted, right? In other words, you might say they're kind of not stable, but actually they are. They're doing the same thing. They're sharing a core set of values, articulating them, making them available, and sharing them in the public sphere, just in different ways. It could be a newsletter, it could be a summer camp, it could be tours, it could be synagogues, it could be radio shows, right? And one might look and say the person's shifted, and keeps changing and changing and changing, right? But actually, the person's actually completely stable, right? There's a meta stability, right? And I think that's a very important distinction, right? In other words, the distinguish between my commitment and my meta commitment. Now, both are important, right? And sometimes I need to give up a commitment in order to fulfill my meta commitment.